Okay, so I had a good look at this game that you sent me and tried to think of some useful things that I can say to help you improve your game. One of the things that I must say stood out to me is that you seem to be very critical on yourself when you compared your own moves with the moves of the computer. And I think that's unnecessary. You played very well. As a matter of fact, you start the comments that you sent me by saying in this unequal contest, which I don't think is true. If you look at the game, if I didn't have the comments to look at, then I would have said that this was a match between two relatively equal match players, players of relatively equal strength. And I'm sure if you had to ask this opponent who you played against, if you had to ask him what he thought in the middle of the game, who had an advantage, he probably would have said that he thinks White had a small advantage, but he wasn't sure how to convert it and it was still tough. That's pretty much what it was. It's only right near the end where you made the tactical error that White's game became a lot easier. And even at that point, you said that White was surprised that you resigned. Well, if at that point he was surprised that you resigned, you can imagine how he would have felt earlier on in the game, when things weren't all that clear yet. So I think the most important thing you can learn from this game is a psychological one. You have to trust yourself and you have to believe that you can play a good game. And you also have to believe that it's quite possible to win a higher rated opponent. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the game and see if I can make a few comments. I see you're pretty good with the computer analysis. However, I do think you have to be careful with what the computer says. And remember that for both players, it's pretty difficult when you sit behind the board and you don't have a computer to help you. So this move, Queen A5, you criticize it and maybe it's not the best option. Maybe like the comment you made, that it was maybe not a good idea is correct, but it's definitely not a matter that you get a bad position or that you're getting a losing position. Not at all. Okay, so you're going to lose a pawn again and you'll be forced to bring the queen back, which is not ideal, and maybe you'll remember this for the next time. But still, it's not as if White is busy winning here. Maybe Black has some weaknesses in his position and Black needs to develop quickly, but if Black can develop quickly, then he'll be able to neutralize White's advantage. Well, okay, you mentioned this move loses a tempo due to e4, and that's probably correct. Bishop to e7 maybe would have been better. So now you're forced to, you lose a tempo, so that's not ideal. But at least you managed to castle, and now at this stage you should try to think how to develop that knight on b8. Remember to think of the two important thinking processes, calculation and evaluation. And in this position you have to focus on evaluation because there isn't much to calculate here. There aren't many captures, checks and threats. So pretty much you have to try to find out how to develop this knight on b8. And c5 is a great move. Very nice. And here it proves that your opponent didn't have as much confidence as you maybe thought he had. Because as you've seen in the computer analysis, after d5 the position is again very equal. Because of that move that you found. Knight takes, queen takes. Okay, see, you give yourself a question mark for the move queen d6. I wouldn't think that it's a question mark move. Maybe queen f6 or queen d4, as you mentioned, would have been slightly better, but I don't see the advantage of queen d4 over queen d6, except for the fact that maybe on queen d4 your queen is a little better developed than on d6. And I think the reason you brought it back to d6 is probably because in your mindset you were already trying to defend the position instead of trying to put pressure on your opponent. And as I've mentioned, I think that's the important lesson you can learn. Try to put pressure on your opponent. Doesn't mean how good he is. Doesn't matter how good he is. Put pressure on him. Because moves that put pressure on your opponent are usually the best ones. Okay, Queen d6. King h8, yes. Maybe if you calculate a little deeper here, spend some time in the calculation process, then maybe queen takes d2 makes a lot more sense. Or straight development of knight to b6. But this move king to h8, I don't see how it improves your evaluation of the position. If you think of the evaluation method, how does the move king h8 really improve your evaluation? So remember to think of that two things, the calculation method and the evaluation method. Calculation is about, are there any tactics in the position? And evaluation is about, how can I improve my position, or how can I prevent my opponent improving their position? So from that point of view, probably the move knight c6 makes the most sense, because it improves the development of both your knight as well as it allows your rook to enter the game. And by just following that simple process, you will see that even the computer engine agrees that knight c6 is probably the best move here. Right, now I see you give the comment here, black is lost. Now I hope you understand from what I've just said up till now, that black is not lost. It's difficult for white to still find a way to win this position, as happens with the very next move. You see, your opponent makes a move that proves that it's not easy to find the best moves. Neither of you are computers, and that's why from a practical point of view the game is a lot tougher. Knight c6, good. Okay, again I see you give yourself a question mark here. I think the reason why maybe it wasn't the best move is you give white an opportunity to exchange his knight for your bishop, and your bishop is a important defender in this position. It helped close the e file for the white rook, and also important defender of the c5 pawn. But so from that point of view, maybe the rook to d8 is not the best. You should have just gone for material. So in this position you should just calculate, can I take the pawn or can't I? If you can take material, you should always take it, unless you can see a good reason why you shouldn't take it. So basically in this position you have to calculate, can I take the pawn or can't I? That's the first thing you should have done. And if you see you can't take the pawn, then you have to think, well, okay, so how can I improve my position? And from that point of view, the next move, rook to d8, actually does make sense. Okay, now you see the fact that your dark square bishop is not on the board anymore does create a lot of problems for you. Now here's another interesting point. I see you've also seen that the computer engine would give a big advantage here to white. However, it's not all that simple to keep the advantage. Okay, yes. Some tactical errors by both. And then white makes a move that doesn't take advantage of the tactic, as you also saw in the engine. But I want to take that opportunity to once again point out that your opponent didn't find this as easy as you might have thought he did. And in this position again, white probably feels relatively comfortable that he shouldn't lose, but I don't think he was very comfortable that he's going to win this. Because if you put up a solid defense here, then it's going to be very difficult for white to improve his position. Okay, and this move was the final mistake. This is the move that really gave white an advantage, in my opinion, because you forgot an important role that the knight played on c6 is he covered the e7 square as well. I see you probably wanted to bring your knight to b5, and it would be nice if you can get it there, but it takes a little long, and in the process you give white a chance to get his rook to e7, which is a very strong position for the rook. And now I'd agree that white's position becomes winning. And after this move I probably would have resigned as well. You could have tried to put up a fight for a little longer, but against a strong player you know that there's no chance really, that no need. I agree completely with what you said. There's no need to suffer out through this endgame that you're just going to lose in the end in any case. Right, so just to summarize again, I think you actually played very well, and up until this knight maneuver both of you had chances throughout the game, and that's just how it goes with human chess. We aren't computers. When we are under pressure we do make mistakes, and your opponent proved that he wasn't as comfortable as you maybe thought he was. I think you can actually change your mindset. I think you deserve it. You play well enough. Change your mindset into believing that you can win if you play well, that you can play against stronger players. And maybe send me another game that you won against a higher rated player. Enjoy your next game. Cheers.